Hello everyone and welcome back to Clear Creek Solutions Hydrology Education videos. We're going over the Construction Stormwater Prevention Plan. Now we're on to Construction Stormwater BMPs. This is part 2-3. We have a free wwhm 2012 instructional course. You can find that in the description box down below to learn how to use wwhm 2012 100% free. Anyways, let's go into Construction Stormwater BMPs. Remember, I'm pulling this from the Washington State Department of Ecology Stormwater Management Manual. Go there if you want all the main information. That's really where you're going to want to find every single, dot your I's, cross your T's, right? But I'm sort of doing an overview here in this series. So now this chapter contains standards and specifications for temporary BMPs or best management practices used as appropriate during the construction phase of a project. Often using BMPs in combination is the best method to meet the Construction Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan requirements. The standards and specifications in this chapter are not intended to limit innovative efforts to effectively control erosion and sedimentation. Construction plans can contain experimental BMPs or make minor modifications to standard BMPs. However, the permitting authority, state, local, or both, must approve such practices before use. Experimental and modified BMPs must achieve the same or better performance than the BMPs listed below. None of the BMPs listed below will work well successfully throughout the construction project without inspection and maintenance. Regular inspections to identify problems with the operation of each BMP and the timely repair of any problems are essential to the contained operation of the BMPs. As site conditions change, BMPs must change to remain in compliance. Construction stormwater BMPs are divided into two categories: construction source control BMPs and construction runoff BMPs. There's a table that's included which shows construction BMPs. That table's in the manual. Now here's all the construction plan elements. Element 1 is the preserve vegetation, mark clearing limits. Element 2, establish construction access. Element 3, control flow rates. 4, install sediment controls. 5, stabilize soils. 6, protect slopes. 7, protect drain inlets. 8, stabilize channels and outlets. 9, control pollutants. 10, control dewatering. 11, maintain BMPs. 12, manage the project. And 13, protect low impact development BMPs. So here's the first one we're going to go over here. This is BMP C101, preserving natural vegetation. So the purpose of preserving natural vegetation is to reduce erosion wherever practicable. Limiting site disturbance is the single most effective method for reducing erosion. For example, conifers can hold up to about 50% of all rain that falls during a storm. Up to 20 to 30% of this rain may never reach the ground, was taken up by the tree or evaporates. Another benefit is that the rain held in the tree can be released slowly to the ground after the storm. So the conditions of use are: natural vegetation should be preserved on steep slopes, near perennial and intermittent watercourses or swales, and on building sites in wooded areas. As required by local governments, phase construction to preserve natural vegetation on the project site for as long as possible during the construction period. Here's some design and installation specifications. Natural vegetation can be preserved in natural clumps or as individuals, trees, shrubs, and vines. The preservation of individual plants is more difficult because heavy equipment is generally used to remove unwanted vegetation. The points to remember when attempting to save individual plants are: is the plant worth saving? Consider location, species, size, age, vigor, and work involved. Local governments may also have the ordinances to save natural vegetation and trees. Fence or clearly mark areas around the trees that are to be saved. It is preferable to keep ground disturbance away from the trees, at least as far out as the drip line. Plants need protection from 3 kinds of injuries. Construction equipment, this injury can be above or below the ground level. Damage results from scarring, cutting of roots, and compaction of the soil. Place a fence buffer zone around those plants. Grade changes. Changing the natural ground level will alter grades, which affects the plant's ability to obtain necessary air, water, and minerals. When there are major changes in grade, it may become necessary to supply air to the roots of plants. This can be done by placing a layer of gravel and a tile system over the roots before the fill is made. Lowering the natural ground level can seriously damage trees and shrubs. The highest percentage of the plant roots are in the upper 12 inches of the soil, and cuts of only 2 to 3 inches can cause serious injury. To protect the roots, it may be necessary to terrace the immediate area around the plants to be saved. Excavations protect trees and other plants when excavating for drain fields, power, water, and sewer lines. Where possible, the trenches should be routed around trees and large shrubs. Cut as few roots as possible. Backfill the trench as soon as possible, and tunnel beneath root systems as close to the center as possible. And then some of the maintenance standards: inspect, flagged, and or fenced areas regularly to make sure flagging or fencing has not been removed or damaged. If the flagging or fencing has been damaged or visibility reduced, it shall be repaired or replaced immediately, and visibility restored. If tree roots have been exposed or injured, prune cleanly with an appropriate pruning saw or loppers directly above the damaged roots and recover with native soils. Treatment of sap-flowing trees, fir, hemlock, pine, and soft maples is not advised as sap forms a natural healing barrier. Now here's BMP C102, buffer zones. So the purpose of buffer zones is the creation of an undisturbed area or strip of natural vegetation or an established suitable planting that will provide a living field to reduce soil erosion and stormwater runoff velocities. So the conditions of use are buffer zones are used along streams, wetlands, and other bodies of water that need protection from erosion and sedimentation. Contractors can use vegetative buffer zone BMPs to protect natural swales, and they can incorporate them into the natural landscaping of an area. Do not use critical areas buffer zones as sediment treatment areas. These areas shall remain completely undisturbed. The local permitting authority may expand the buffer widths temporarily to allow the use of the expanded area for removal of sediment. The types of buffer zones can change, the level of protection required. The designated critical area buffers that protect critical areas as defined by the Washington State Growth Management Act and are established and managed by local permitting authority. These should not be disturbed and must be protected with sediment control BMPs to prevent impacts. Vegetative buffer zone areas that may be identified in undisturbed vegetation areas or managed vegetation areas that are outside any designated critical area buffer. They may be utilized to provide an additional sediment control area and or reduce runoff velocities. If being used for preservation of natural vegetation, they should be arranged in clumps or strips. They can be used to protect natural swales and incorporated into the natural landscaping area. Now for design and installation, preserving natural vegetation or planting in clumps, blocks, or strips is generally the easiest and most successful method. Leave all unstable steep slopes and natural vegetation. Mark clearing limits and keep all equipment and construction debris out of the natural areas and buffer zones. Steel construction fencing is the most effective method to protect sensitive areas and buffers. Keep all excavations outside the drip line of trees and shrubs. Do not push debris or extra soil into the buffer zone area because it will cause damage by burying and smothering. And vegetative buffer zones for streams, lakes, or other waterways shall be established by the local permitting authority or other state or federal permits or approvals. Then for maintenance, inspect the area frequently to make sure flagging remains in place and the area remains undisturbed. Replace all damaged flagging immediately. Remove all materials located in the buffer area that they may impede the ability of the vegetation to act as a filter. So that's BMP C102, 101 and 102. We're going to go over more of the BMPs in future videos, so you want to subscribe to the channel to see those videos. Anyways, we'll see you guys in the next video.